Hello, hello, and welcome to this episode of How to Be a Great GM. And in today's episode, we are looking at the return to virtual tabletop role-playing, or in other words, playing online via something like Skype or Roll20. Now, in my previous video, I indicated that this may be not necessarily the best way to go about role-playing in general, and was challenged by several people that this was perhaps not the most educated option that I could have expressed. To that end, I was hosted in a game run by GM Simon from Germany, and I was joined by 3 other players, and we had the most remarkably entertaining evening that I've had in a long time. Credit to Simon, where Simon's credit is due. He was a fairly good GM. I was engaged, I was entertained, he made interesting calls, and the story ran and progressed smoothly, and we wrapped up in several hours, which is what was expected from this one-shot. So I really enjoyed playing with Simon, and the rest of the players, of course, were thoroughly entertaining. We were talking about the size of lizard men's dangly bits, as well as trying to solve riddles and defeat an evil witch who seemed to know the secrets of all of the players involved, who'd created some really awesome backstories. So I was playing with a bunch of people that I would say are all great players and great GMs. Everything was prepared, everything was done, everybody had motivations and backstories. It was absolutely lovely. What does that, though, do to my opinion of online role-playing? Well, we use the Roll20 system, which is a website-based role-playing system, and there are several out there. I think Roll20 is just one of the easier ones to access, and we had to create characters, obviously, online using the system, which was the first point of contention, where we had some players who weren't sure if they had to create it online within the Roll20 system or not. So my review today is on the issues, the benefits, and the pains and the wonders of virtual tabletop role-playing, or VTT as the acronymists like to call it. The technology barrier was there, and I know I sound like a little old man when I say I couldn't work out what button to press. There was an on button on the computer, but then on the keyboard there was a return. It was very confusing. So the technology barrier is there, and it's not as intuitive as I would like. On the other hand, I understand that all of these online systems are battling with copyright issues over character creation and what can and can't be used freely on their systems and platforms without having to license from the likes of Dungeons & Dragons, 5th edition, and so on. So technology was a little bit of a barrier. Some of us had webcams, some of us didn't have webcams, and we used the microphone option instead, so we could hear everybody. Personally, I would have liked to have seen webcams because then we can see what the other person is doing, which I thought was entertaining. Having said that, though, it wasn't as big a break as I had assumed it to be, because my mind's eye was engaged by the other players and by the GM. It was constantly kept very visual in my head. So that kind of mitigated that. We didn't have very many issues. Players didn't drop out any time during the game. There were some audio problems where we couldn't hear what was being said, but that was just a setting on the person's personal computer. So setting up the character was a little bit tricky. Once we figured out how to set up the character, though, that's when the system really shines. And the system, if you haven't ever played it before, allows you to have your character sheet, and then when you need to cast a spell, roll dice, do anything that you need to do on your character sheet, keep track of ammunition, keep track of the weight of the items that you're carrying, it's all done for you. It's all automated. So when you want to cast a spell, you simply click on the spell that you want to cast, and bingo, the spell pops up on everybody's screen, full descriptions, etc., etc. And I'll be peppering this video with clips from the actual experience, because we recorded it, so that you can have a look and see exactly what I mean. So by doing that, I personally, as a GM, really enjoy that, because it means when I cast Healing Word, all of the other players, as well as the GM, can see a full description of the verbals, the components, all of that kind of thing, as well as the write-up of the spell. And that is education first class. It means the warrior who traditionally doesn't care when he's sitting around the table what the wizard is doing, it means he can now glance over, see what the wizard is doing, and go, aha, I have understood a little bit more about that spell. It means that you can learn about the other classes much better than when you're sitting around a table. So I really like that aspect. So the benefits certainly seem to mitigate the lengthy character creation process. If you use an item, you simply click on it and you delete it on your character sheet. If you gain an item, you simply drag and drop it onto your character sheet. Obviously, there's a built-in search option, indices, that you can go and search for spells or equipment descriptors and that kind of thing, so that was fantastic. Downside, of course, is not all of the spells. There's certain copyrighted materials that are owned specifically by wizards who control Dungeons & Dragons, who haven't released it to public domain yet. Those you can't access, and you kind of have to fudge the system a little bit by writing it in yourself and doing that kind of thing, which again is just a little bit of a prep for then potentially a very, very useful and very interactive character sheet. So from a GM's perspective, however, I don't think it's something that I personally can engage in, because I so enjoy the ability to be able to run the game in any direction that the players might want to go in. My players know that when I say that my world is sandbox, it is absolutely sandbox. There is no railroading to a specific point. Sure, I might have certain things set up, but at the same time, I really enjoy making things up on the fly and exploring the world with my players as they go along. VTT is something that does not necessarily allow that, and I'm sure some of you are going to disagree with me, and I look forward to seeing your points of view. You have to preset a whole lot of different things, building in all of the maps, generating all kinds of figures and things for monsters and what have you, loading up their character sheets. So there is a lot of behind the scenes prep work for the GM, and if you haven't got it, to set it up is a fairly lengthy process. So improvisation is restricted to a certain degree anyway, in my opinion, by the interface of the system. Now, there might be other systems out there where the GM can manually draw directly onto a blank page that all the players can see, so then dungeon creation is not so restrictive. You don't have to have preloaded all these maps and things. So there may be a system out there. It wasn't the one that I experienced. If we had decided not to follow the path, our GM would have been stuck without maps necessarily. Not that you have to have those, but the power that Roll20 has anyway is the way that it reveals maps and things is absolutely brilliant. And you can use that to your advantage very, 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 very much so if you've preset it. So the prep work there is a bit of a negative for me. So I will happily play in VTT, in Virtual Tabletop simulations. I don't think I will ever run them though myself on that level. I go back to my default Skype or Google Hangouts role-playing, where everyone's rolling dice in front of them. As for rolling the dice and it being an automated button click where you can roll as many dice as you like with a simple little math algorithm, it is useful in terms of being able to add up numbers quite quickly, but again, the roll of the dice, the anticipatory look as you watch that 20 roll from a 19 onto a 2, where you watch those six-sided dice all scatter and roll ones or sixes depending, that wasn't there, and I kind of missed it. So overall, it's absolutely a fantastic system as a player, a little bit clunky as a GM, I think, and well, I have certainly had my opinion changed. I'm far more interested now in playing online than I was before. Does it beat the round the table experience? No, it doesn't. But as was explained to me by a lot of you, it isn't a tabletop experience. It's a different kind of interaction. It's a different kind of role-playing, and it's not necessarily a worse kind of role-playing either. It opens up all kinds of opportunities. If you don't have the rule books, if you don't have dice, if you don't necessarily have all of that space, it's absolutely fantastic. But, and here's my caveat, it all works provided that people don't break the 6 rules of etiquette online. Muting mics while eating, all that kind of stuff is still very much applicable and very, very, very important to making that online experience as good as it possibly can be. So I hope that you have learned a little bit about VTT from the 2 videos that I've done, what I didn't like about them and now what I do like about them, and maybe you go and try it yourself, see what it's like. Until next time, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and you can join us on Patreon for more information as we shoot additional material for our Patreons moving forward from the 1st of April. So until next time, happy gaming.